What's up, Guns? I figured I'd take a break from making remake videos for a minute and do a quick Rebirth one. The objective here is to go over the individual mechanics of all the characters. I'm going to sort of do a 101, explain how everything works, teach all the basic mechanics, and once I've gone through everyone individually, I'm going to teach a bunch of team mechanics because that's the real game here. This game is all about chaining together double and triple attacks non-stop, all thanks to the synergy system and switching. I'm just going to start with Cloud all by himself, but eventually we are going to get very high level with just the starting kits here. This is all very low execution, very easy to do, so don't feel intimidated. All you have to do is have this game explained to you, and it all makes tons of sense and becomes, you know, a dance once you know what you're doing. A couple of caveats. I reserve the right to edit and cut away and zip around and jump around because I just don't want to have to waste people's time. Also, it's been kind of a while since I played this game. I've played Remake a lot in the past few months because I'm making some big video about the core mechanics of that. So just bear with me. Aerith and Tifa don't really come online until the second major area, which I'm going to jump ahead to do them. Instead, we're going to focus on Cloud, Barret, and Red 13 and the magic machine gun, and sort of them as a team. All right, this is like a triple tank comp. It's really mobile, really defensive, very, very strong, and you can really just carry yourself through the first couple areas using it. So the first thing you got to do is unlock the necessary abilities. First ability, Range Blade, which is a little 3-hit synergy attack where, you know, Cloud shoots a projectile basically alongside his teammate. Second ability is going to be Iron Defense with Barret, which is a bubble shield that teleports people, incredibly powerful. And then the third ability is going to be Wild Charge for Red 13, which of course is like his primary mobility tool, so it's an incredibly important piece of his kit. The developers basically lay all this stuff out in a particular order. You see, here's his other first ability, which is the synergy skill with Barret. You see, they're designed to be together. Here, look, see Barret's first synergy ability, also with Red 13. This game it's funny that they didn't make this the first comp, because really that's what it is. Regardless of what starting comp you choose, the first thing you want to do here is go over to Chadley and... Chadley, okay, please. All right, here we go. We go over to Chadley. We unlock the Sonic Boom ability, which is an enemy skill. Sonic Boom, of course, puts an offensive physical buff and an offensive magical buff on a person, and it's also a wind attack, a ranged wind attack. So it's kind of one of the best abilities in the game, and you're given it immediately, no stipulations whatsoever. I'm going to just use Cloud, and I'm going to replay this fight a few times because I really want to go over all of Cloud's mechanics before we move on to like team play and all that other stuff. Okay, so Cloud is a tank. He's fast, he's strong, he's mobile, he's built around defense, he's got an amazing block, his dodge is great, he's got parry, he's got everything. Basically, his specialty is drawing aggro and holding on to it. You know, he can fight 36 guys and fight Godzilla. And as you can see, I can just take damage. I can sit here like building ATB. I don't even need to attack. Cloud is that great. You know, this guy's coming. I can parry him. Boom. And you see my ATB bars? They're already completely full. And that's the most important lesson of this game. Is that, notice, I didn't use a single attack, all right? And I'm just going to kill these guys like they're nothing now. Because ATB is everything in this game, okay? Everything else is secondary. You don't hit 100,000 damage hits off of basic attacks. It's just the way it is. Probably the most important rule in this game. When you take damage, you lose ATB, and when you block damage, you gain ATB. So obviously blocking is incredibly powerful. And that's before we even get into perfect dodging or perfect blocking, which also make, you know, just defense incredible in general. Like I said, I'm going to try this fight a few times. No, not this. I'm going to retry this fight a few times because I really want to explain Cloud. And now I'm not going to worry about ATB. I'm just going to sit there with a full bar. But in general, always remember, keep your eyes on the ATB bar. Use ATB. Don't waste your time hacking away at things. All right? It's meaningless.
Bitch, don't you ever.
The damage from, like, yeah, right. Here's basic attack 1. 6 damage, okay? Basic attack 1 is not a damaging tool. It is a mobility tool. You see the zip there. It's beautiful. I mean, he's just got so much range on it. He goes such a distance, and it's dodge cancelable, block cancelable. It's the most amazing mobility tool ever. And the damage is just crap, right? But watch. Now I'm going to use a single ATB on this guy, and boom, 269 damage, right? So compare that to 6 damage from a single hit. ATB is just the most important thing in the entire game. So yeah, basic attack 1, fantastic mobility tool, dodge cancel, block cancel, just completely fantastic. It leads into your base combo, which once again is mostly for ATB games. His next tool for combat is going to be his dodge light attack, which shoots these little green magic bolts. Magic, of course, builds the stagger bar, which is incredibly useful. The damage on this is also insanely weak, so just keep that in mind. Next ability tool, or mobility tool, is going to be his dodge heavy attack. Heavy attack, of course, is where you just hold basic attack. So right here, you see how it zips him in the air to a target, starts an air combo, and look, I dodge, and I can just stay up in the air. Well, except when I get hit. I can just stay up in the air, and see, I'm heavy attack, oh, but doesn't matter. Dodge, heavy attack, you can just stay in the air permanently, okay? But of course, the catch to staying in the air is that you're wide open. You have no defense in the air. Instead, you want everything in this game to be short combos, to be quick. You don't want to do full attack combos unless you're just absolutely safe. Because once again, when you get hit, you lose ATB, you get knocked back, you lose health. And so ideally, with Cloud, the sort of follow-up to that zip, for me at least, is always going to be unique attack, which causes Cloud to crash down into the ground and get into Punisher stance. And there it is. So heavy attack, dodge heavy attack, unique attack. It's that simple. Very low execution. I'm going to slam to the ground, knock everybody up into the air, do a bunch of damage, and go into Punisher stance. And Punisher stance, of course, is Cloud's heavy stance. Whenever I'm in Punisher stance, holding block lets me parry melee attacks, which is the best thing about him, because it gives you a ton of ATB. Once again, my ATB bars are full. I can just kill these guys whenever. But, yeah, parry is pretty much the primary function of Cloud. He gets up in things' faces with basic attack or, you know, dodge heavy attack, and then he parries them to get ATB and do stuff. Parry itself has 2 different activations. You have block and Punisher, and then you have actually just the activation of Punisher itself, which is this gigantic window. Lets you parry just whenever you want. It's like 1,000 frames and a half or so, you know? I mean, it just... And then we parry this guy. And yeah, once again, ATB management is where it's at, and then on top of ATB management, we want to worry about staggering the enemies, which you can see is that orange bar beneath the health. The way you kill enemies in this game and get real damage is you put them into staggered, and then you stack a whole bunch of damage buffs on top of each other and blow them up. This next enemy here will actually be a really great example of that. First off, I'm just going to play defense. Just going to get my ATB up nice and loose. Defense, defense, defense. Into a parry. We're getting close to 2 ATD bars. He's already almost staggered, too. Gonna block. Hit me again. Good man. Okay. So, yeah, first technique I'm going to do here is what you call a stagger spike. That's where you hit the enemy with its elemental weakness or whatever its weakness is and put it into pressured. I'm going to follow that up with focus thrust, which increases the stagger on an enemy that is pressured, okay? And the 2 of these actions combined are almost a guaranteed stagger. Every character has their own sort of version of a stagger spike. You know, I call these things routines because everybody can do them. They all have their own sort of way about them. Next, we go into Cloud's what you call stagger combo, which is to activate Berserk, So we switch to Punisher stance, hold heavy attack, and I've already done activated Berserk. I'm going to use Limit Break to finish him, but the point is that stagger on top of Berserk means a double damage boost. And remember, I just unlocked Sonic Boom, which of course gives me another damage buff to stack on top of that. And that's definitely the nature of this game, is you got to find things that work well together and use them, you know, together. So we've learned Cloud, now we're going to go learn Red 13. Red 13 is, of course, a Dark Knight, which is to say that he gets stronger based on the damage that he takes. Absorbing damage basically powers his kit up. That's all executed through blocking right now, but as the game progresses, he gains all sorts of other extra tools that jack up his damage output to just ridiculous levels. So first thing to know about Red 13 is, once again, you need to unlock Wild Charge, which of course is his primary mobility tool. As you can see, it's a big dashing attack, similar to Cloud's basic attack 1. It's also a synergy skill. It seems to teleport my party member, and they do a nice little attack. You see, here's Cloud. Now I'm going to do it with Barret. And yeah, obviously you need Wild Charge to get around. Oh yeah, the other thing about Wild Charge is it's a block. Let's see if I can do it. You can perfect block with it. I did. I'm not doing it though. But yeah, you can perfect block with this. Anyways, that's all to fuel his Vengeance gauge, which of course is in the bottom corner there. Vengeance mode eventually is used to power all sorts of crazy broken support abilities that he has, but in the start of the game, the only thing it really is for is activation. Basically, you want to activate it to get some ATB. So we would switch to Red 13 and see he gets like about a third of a bar there. His dodge becomes super powered and gains a whole bunch of iframes, and then his attacks also do an insane amount of stagger damage. On Cloud, I discussed this concept of a stagger spike, and for Red 13, it's actually different. His stagger spike would be, hit them with the elemental weakness into, activating Vengeance mode, and then you would just use his basic attacks, because his basic attacks do tons and tons and tons of stagger damage. You can sort of benefit from the heal from Siphon Fang and Vengeance mode and stuff. That's all great, but really it's all about the stagger gains. It's all about just the concept of defense in general. Red 13 can block an attack and then instantly counterattack with counter spin here. Let's see if I can do it. And right here, boom. And that gets him lots of ATB as well. So Red 13 is sort of a very defensively oriented character at the beginning of the game. As the end of the game comes, he becomes insanely offensively oriented. And support, really, too. He has haste and heals and all sorts of stuff. Right, it's important to know that blocking and then punishing is a generalized sort of mentality you need to have in this game. You know, as I've already shown with Cloud, you don't really need attacks. You can just block and dodge and defend and use all sorts of shenanigans to build your ATB, and then you just use ATB to explode people. Let's see. We're powering up the Vengeance gauge. Right, the next tool he has is Sidewinder, which is just Braver, glorified Braver. Then we have Sentinel Stance. Sentinel Stance puts him into a guard position where it makes everything a perfect block. And that also, of course, powers up the Vengeance gauge. You get like a nice tasty bonus from it. But just as importantly, it can be canceled into an attack. You see, and it does pretty okay stagger, does a little bit of interrupt. It's just worth knowing, because Sentinel Stance feels like a waste unless you know about the attack cancel that you get out of it. And of course, once you have things to spend Vengeance on, Sentinel Stance becomes really, really, really important. Right, the last thing to cover about Red 13 right now is going to be Stardust Ray, which of course is this amazing AoE magic attack that the damage is actually not particularly great. What's great about it is just the interrupt and the stagger damage that it does, because of course magic damage does stagger just sort of in a general sense. And that's really important. Oh god, everybody's dead. Well, and now hilarious. Well, look, you know, That happens. All right, I'm not good at this game. I haven't played in a long time. Right, none of that really matters. What matters is Red 13 being a tank, and oh god, I don't even know what matters anymore. So that's Red 13. Eventually he gets, you know, Reaper Touch, which lets him do more damage at low health, and then you can combine that with an ATB skill, and then self-destruct, and then resurrect into another Reaper Touch. But get the hang of Red 13 if you want to understand the rules of defense in this game. That is to say that dodge is okay, but really blocking and then counterattacking is how you want to play this game, especially with Aerith. But yeah, Red 13's like the poster child for it. So now we've learned how to use two characters, and that's where the real game begins. Because this game is not about controlling one character, it's about team dynamics. It's basically woven into the fabric of this game. I'll give you an example. I'm going to go use Braver here, and when I do, it's going to freeze my ATB bar. Watch. And it's frozen, now it's finally gaining again. This is because instead of watching animations, I really should be switching to a character. Because since one ATB bar is frozen, I could easily just cancel out of the animation and then go make some ATB on somebody else. See? I've just switched to Red 13 and now I'm making basically customized double attacks out of the situation. Now he's hitting me, so I'm going to Sidewinder and then switch back to Cloud, and see? We're just keeping the pressure on. We're keeping the ATB up. We're keeping the damage up. This is how you play the game. This is what I call switch canceling. That's where we cancel an animation rather than watch it by switching. Okay, we cancel it and we switch to Red 13. And then I'm going to go into Vengeance mode, and then I'm going to fill up the stagger bar. And then we're going to go into Stardust Ray, and we're going to switch back to Cloud. And so anyways, switch canceling is not some made-up thing. It's definitely, like, in the mind of the developers here. They built a whole other mechanic on top of it. And that is, when I switch, you know, I just switch, right? I'm switching, whatever. But if I look at the target here, right, and I hold block, and I switch, it teleports my partner to them. And then we teleport Cloud to them, and then we teleport Red 13, and then we teleport Barret, and then Cloud again. And everybody has like a special little attack that they do when you do it. This is called the tag attack, for lack of a better term. I call it the super secret tag attack because the game literally doesn't explain this even exists, other than the briefest of mentions. And yeah, the super secret tag attack starts Cloud, Tifa, and Yuffie in the air, which is awesome because, you know, that means I can just switch to Cloud, crash down, and I'm into Punisher or just whatever I want. And yeah, once again, this is where the real game begins, because it's all about coming up with customized, improvised double attacks, triple attacks, quadruple attacks. Into Firebolt Blade, into fucking Limit Break. Let's do it. You see? And then we're back to Cloud, and now he's done with his animation. Now, we'll get back to team dynamics in a minute here, but instead, we're going to go right back in, and we're going to cover Barret. All right, now, Barret, of course, a slow, tanky, ranged slash DPS slash support slash everything. He doesn't really truly come online until a little bit later because his primary mobility tool, just like Red 13, is a sort of synergy dash, which unfortunately he does not have. Regardless of that, Barret's primary function is as a ranged unit, and that's comes from his overcharge ability, which gives him free ATB. So we overcharge, and we get some free ATB, and then we spend that ATB. And now it's on a recharge, overcharge, right? And every time I hit unique attack, it charges it a little bit. Now, the special thing about this is that basically every action that Barret has, cancels into charge, okay? So I'm going to finish my clip, last hit, charge cancel. We're going to use another overcharge, and then this time I'm going to use Steel Skin and charge cancel. You see? And so good form with Barret, right, is to always charge cancel everything. Steel Skin, of course, is denoted by these sort of really impossible to see sparks on his body. They reduce his damage, and of course that all helps when Barret eventually gets the ability to absorb damage for the team, and then he can stack, you know, barrier and protect on top of steel skin, steadfast block materia and all that. It's like suddenly, you know, the damage is being reduced down to 1/10, 1/12, 1/16. So one of the things that's really special about Barret is he can use extra ATB to sort of improve his abilities in different ways. For example, Max Fury here is like a sustained fire of sort of extra strong machine gun damage, and you can double the length of that fire with 2 bars. Focus shot, of course, increased stagger, just like Cloud's focus thrust, and as a result, you can use a second ATB bar to sort of double the stagger gains from that sort of thing. Max Fury, the damage is okay, but, you know, Barret's bullets do small damage to begin with, so it's really hard to sort of really lift those numbers up. But what you can do is use elemental materia with ice, and you can, like, you know, generate crazy amounts of stagger from it. And that also goes for focus shot as well, of course. When you get 3 bars because of refocus, this type of stuff becomes really crazy, but even with 2 bars, it can get really good. I want to do the stagger spike with Barret here, and normally it would be hit him with the elemental weakness, then use overcharge to regain that lost ATB, and then get it back up to 2 bars really quick and use a 2-bar focus shot to pressure, or stagger, rather. But since the enemy's already pressured, we're going to do a different one this time. I'm going to do focus shot, followed by overcharge, into another focus shot. And then charge cancel it because I'm a boss. Boom, and now he's staggered. Hopefully that shows the sort of usefulness of this technique here, the stagger spiking, so to speak. You always want to trigger stagger on purpose and at the right moment, but that's sort of what all these stagger abilities revolve around. Oh god. Me being knocked around here leads me to the final ability I want to cover for Barret, which is his Iron Defense, where he teleports his friends and creates a little bubble shield. This is just an absolutely amazing ability. You can perfect block with it. You can reposition your friends. And, of course, in a triple tank comp like this, it's very, very helpful. On top of all of that, Red 13 here, of course, has the Vengeance gauge when he blocks, and it charges his Vengeance gauge, just like how it gives ATB to both people for blocking. Blocking, of course, gives ATB. So, you know, don't underestimate Iron Defense. It is an incredibly useful tool. And really, that's Barret, pretty much. Sort of jack-of-all-trades type character. He gets way stronger as the game goes, and he gets more and more abilities. Eventually, he gets Lifesaver, which is this incredibly powerful damage absorption ability, and that's going to allow him to create sort of a crazy tank build. So that's all 3 characters in a nutshell. And now we're going to start mixing them together. And the first thing we have to learn there is, you know, I've already covered the synergy skills for Barret and Red 13. Now I'm going to talk about Cloud's, which is the same synergy skill, just with each of these 2 people. With Barret, it's Bullet Batter, which is a little 1-2-3 range combo, and that does physical damage. And then, of course, with Red 13, it's Howling Smash, which is a little 1-2-3 magic attack combo. Did I put Prey on him yet? No? Okay. This on its own allows Cloud to be very, very mobile and spry. Synergy skills like this only, oh Jesus, are only affected by the person who activates them. This is to say that, like, if I put Sonic Boom on Cloud, it's going to augment the damage from Bullet Batter and Howling Smash. However, if I put it on Barret, it's not going to do anything. The min-maxing allows me to really jack up the stagger gains, especially on Red 13's version of this, since it's magical. That's in addition to the fact that Cloud's dodge ranged attack, oh god, dodge range attack is magical to begin with too. So 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. You see? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. We're just building stagger. And of course I can use elemental materia, I can use Sonic Boom, I can use all these things to augment, you know, the stagger, the damage, what have you. Now, that's not the real magic of this situation. What the real magic is what I call the magic machine gun. And that is to say, instead of doing 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3, you just do the first hit. 1, 1, 1, 1, and it just goes forever and ever and ever. Look, all 3 bars going up at once. Obviously, the ATB gains aren't massive, but at the same time, this is giving me a really tanky mobile play style that just lets me be safe all the time. And you mix that with all of Cloud's 10,000 mobility abilities and parry and all this defense and so forth, and you could see how this is just like a super tanky play style. And so, you know, obviously the damage is low, but it's constant, and the stagger gains are extremely reliable. And that is Cloud, Barret, and Red 13. A really tanky comp with, you know, we've got Iron Defense to protect everybody. We've got Red 13, who is, of course, a tank, and he's actually really good at being built as an auto tank, an auto build, so to speak, which is to say you don't really control him. And then you would switch to him, use Vengeance mode, and then we'll get into Stardust Ray, and then we'll go into Cloud, and we'll use Firebolt Blade for him, and then we'll switch to Barret, overcharge for some ATB, into Focus Shot, back to Red 13, who's building Stagger, he's building Stagger, into that, and then into Cloud, crash down, into Berserk, into Braver, over to Barret, and you see this is what the game is really like. I'm just fluidly dancing between all these people, and whenever I'm in control of Cloud, I'm doing a triple attack that builds all my resources. Now we come to the second comp, which is Aerith and Tifa. Once again, it doesn't really come online until you hit party level 3. As opposed to Barret and Red 13, this comp is very risk-reward, very high damage, and absolutely insane ATB gains, to majorly contrast the tanky magic machine gun build. So we have to come here to the folios, and we have to buy all the important ingredients to making this work. And that means I have to go get Melee Blade on Cloud. Going up here, and yeah, this is the whole reason you need party level 3, is Melee Blade. It's a big, heavy wind-up, big hit, and when it slams down, it creates a big magic shockwave that does a ton of damage and gets insane amounts of ATB. And then Spellbound Blast, which is just like Spellblade. And then with Tifa, we're just going to get Leaping Strike. We're going to go get some synergy abilities and synergy skills. Going to get Refocus. See, once again, all these fit together, you know, in this sort of a guide, if you will. ATB, and okay, so now we have Aerith, and Aerith is what you call a time mage. Final Fantasy XII represent. That means she's a sort of super powerful jack of all trades mage who specializes in manipulating ATB in order to get free turns and things like that. For example, she has Arcane Ward, which when you put it down, that allows anyone inside of it to cast double casts of magic. So buy one, get one. In addition to getting the double cast out, that also activates her only mobility tool, which is Teleport, of course. Unique attack will just take you back inside the ward. It's good to lead enemies away from it and then trick them. Her block is actually pretty decent, and we'll get into that in a second, but her dodge is just not very good at all, right? And so really you have to rely on Teleport. And more importantly, you have to rely on an ability called Bodyguard, which is the synergy skill that I bought. Bodyguard teleports a friend and they block for you. This can also trick the AI into drawing aggro to the completely wrong target, and that's really a big thing with Aerith. You really want to try to keep aggro off of her. I mean, you know, she can tank just like anybody in terms of customization, but really she does her best work when she's completely unrestricted, and so Bodyguard is the sort of key to doing all that. For example, she has her heavy attack Tempest here. It has a huge windup. Tempest creates ATB in 2 instances, when it hits and then when it explodes. Really, even more importantly, when Tempest hits, it spawns this little butterfly, which adds stagger and damage and ATB gain to virtually everything Aerith does. You want to try to always lead with Tempest so that you always have, it's called Familiar out. And then once again, yeah, you use bodyguard. We can position people inside wards. I can block projectiles. You can even get perfect blocks out of it because the AI is good like that. Aerith's basic attack is relatively weak, but, you know, it can be infused, which is what I've done here with elemental materia. And, you know, because it's pure magic damage, that means it gets stagger gain. So right now I'm getting double stagger out of it since it's a weakness and also, you know, just magic attack in general. With against multiple targets, this can split, which is like incredibly useful. And against 1v1, it's not the greatest thing on earth. So you'll notice I just kind of try to pepper it and do short bursts. You know, I don't want to be crazy with it. Now, earlier I talked about this concept of stagger spiking, okay, which is to use an ability to trigger pressured, and then you follow that up with some kind of ability that triggers stagger, right? And Aerith doesn't have like a focus shot or a focus thrust like the others have. Instead, it's just her entire kit is magic. And so if you want a rigger to stagger, you would do elemental materia with ice or bring earth and, you know, all these magics that create lots of stagger. Right now, Aerith is rigged to just destroy flyers because flyers are all weak to wind. I also have the ability to do alpha magic, which as soon as I get some ATB, I'm about to do, but first I have to make sure Aerith is not going to die. Okay. Right, so alpha magic is like this. If I go into Folio and I buy Jetstream, which is the wind folio, all right? It's like a free magic cast. And then I go put elemental, or a wind materia on my hero. That gets this little A symbol, and when I cast wind, hold up, I have to make sure she's not going to die. Now, when I cast wind, it's going to create this little sprite, this little white sprite, you see, floating around her. And what that's going to do is just like the fleeting familiar, that's going to add a little bit of stagger and damage and ATB to all the things I do. But even more importantly is it actually adds it to block as well. This means that everything I do, attacking, blocking, whatever, all causes stagger damage. It's this sort of surgical weakness targeting that makes Aerith so special, and even though everyone else can do alpha magic, Aerith's high potency of magic just makes it stronger for her. And the enemy's staggered, so I'm going to use an ability called Soul Drain, which drains MP. In general, a good 2-bar routine is to do magic attack followed by Soul Drain. This is especially true against staggered targets because you get way more MP back. It's just another way that Aerith is special because she has MP management. But yeah, with Aerith there is no really dedicated stagger spike. Instead it's just all these sort of magic utility abilities like Arcane Ward, Soul Drain, you know, Sorcerer's Storm, which is this big AoE sort of magic attack. So that's Aerith 101. As the game progresses, she starts to get ridiculously stronger. This is especially because of ATB Ward later, which can just be abused to no end. Despite being a time mage, she also needs time magic, so like First Strike, Materia, ATB boost, whatever. Her ATB economy is kind of inconsistent is a good word. This is why she's pretty much wasted in the healer position.
Bitch, don't you ever.
Yeah, just give her tanks, give her heals, give her ATB, abuse bodyguard, and she'll make all your dreams come true. Okay, and that brings us to Tifa, who we're going to go fight Titan because that air enemy is just an absolute nightmare for a melee unit like her. Titan is, of course, this game's training dummy. Tifa is an incredibly fast, powerful sort of DPS, arguably a monk pugilist who can just lay on insane pressure. She has a higher speed stat than everybody else, so she gains ATB faster. Her mobility is absolutely off the charts. She has basic attack 1, just like Cloud, where she can just zip from 1,000 miles away. And that's in addition to, you know, her regular dodge, which is really fantastic, and also her synergy dodge, which can be dodge canceled. That's how amazing it is. In addition to all that, she also has her synergy skills that launch her in the air, like this with Cloud. And of course, she also has one with Aerith too. She has one with everybody. Basically, you can't get into the air consistently without using those abilities. just like Cloud, hanging out in the air can be really, really dangerous. And so typically the best idea is once you get up in the air is to use her heavy attack, which causes her to crash down into the ground. Okay, yeah, press and hold heavy attack and bam, she slams down to the ground. That is the safe way to get out of her sort of air attacks. In addition to her synergy launches like that, remember we also have the super secret tag attack, which is holding block and then tagging. So if I do super secret tag attack to Tifa, it starts her in the air and bam, I come straight down to the ground. This is going to get me some really decent ATB. The crash here, boom, just like that. And I can actually chain it between Cloud and Tifa. See, I tag attack to Cloud. I'm going to use a unique attack to crash, just like that. And then I'm going to switch to Tifa and use her heavy attack to crash, and then back to Cloud, and then use unique attack, and then back to Tifa, and we're using heavy attack, and you see it's sort of like a little piston smash. Tifa's ground heavy attack is, of course, uppercut, which is very, very cancelable into dodge here, of course. And in addition, at the top of its arc, you can cancel it into pretty much any air ability. So focus strike, dive kick, reverse scale, all of these can be canceled out of. Focus strike is basically for increasing stagger. It also has a little bit of an iframe to it, so it's not exactly the safest thing on Earth, but it's pretty decent. It was ridiculously broken in Remake. And then, of course, dive kick is sort of the more high damage variant of an air attack here. That's going to be for breaking parts and sort of, you know, finishing off her B&B, which I'm going to show in just a second. And then, of course, reverse gale is going to be something that, you know, anything that's weak to wind, any kind of smaller enemy, it's going to kick them up into the air for an air combo, which, of course, you can immediately, you know, just follow with like a crash. So we go up in the air, and then we'll reverse gale, and then we'll crash down to the ground. Bam. Tifa's speciality is that she can power up her unique attack, and her unique attack will increase the stagger damage on a staggered enemy. Oh no, don't die, Tifa. Right now I have it at level 2, which is Omni Strike, and of course we level it up again, and now it's Rise and Fall. This extends the length of her combo, which I don't even know I'm going to be able to show against this big bastard. Here we go. Yeah, it's going to extend the length of her combo so that it actually fills close to 2 bars of the ATB in total. But once again, you don't want to hang out in super long combo chains, so it's typically important to be very sort of stick and move with her. Right, yeah, okay, all right. Also, Unbridled Strength changes the nature of her uppercut by giving her something to cancel out of, which leads me to Tifa's B&B, which is we press and hold basic attack, and we hold it, and you see it immediately. It's like it zips to the target, cancels in the uppercut, and they fly up into the air. I could finish with dive kick, with focus strike for stagger to, you know, stagger him. Or I could also just press and hold heavy attack again, which when I have level 3 Unbridled Strength... No. Right, when I have level 3 Unbridled Strength... Okay, everyone's dying now. Little bastard. Right, level 3 Unbridled Strength also means that Tifa can cancel her uppercut into another heavy attack and smash down to the ground. Just like that. Let me do it one more time, and then a heavy attack again, and you see, she gets the full combo now. Okay, so the whole point of Tifa, once again, is to get her kit, is to use her unique attack in order to jack up the stagger damage on a staggered target. In order to do that, obviously, yeah, I've got to upgrade Unbridled Strength. I've got to get the opponent in some kind of position where he can be staggered, and just as equally as important, I have to have my team sort of ready for it. You always want to stagger deliberately. You don't just want to have it happen. And of course, this fight is going to be a bad example of that. I'm not going to sit here trying to beat an entire summon fight. I'm severely underleveled and way out of practice. But the point is that, you know, we look at the assess window and it shows that he's weak to wind. And of course, I already have everyone set for wind. And so I throw a wind at him, and it's going to pressure him. And then into Tifa's B&B. Oh, wait. No. Into Tifa's B&B, where we're going to do Focus Strike. And we're going to trigger the stagger, and then the Tifa stagger combo is to unload both unique attacks once they're level 3. Rise and Fall, followed by Omni Strike. You can see that the staggered bonus damage right now is at 160. So we're going to do both unique attacks. It's Rise and Fall, Omni Strike. Now it's up to 210. As you can see, it refilled my entire ATB bar. I could do anything I want from here. I could put 2 more Unbridled Strengths on and keep the stagger damage going. I could just go into a B&B or use that to do my own damage. I could also, you know, do what I'm supposed to do, really, which is create some kind of improvised triple attack out of the situation, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to B&B into Dive Kick, and then we're going to switch Cancel to Cloud, and then we're going to Punisher, and then Berserk, and then we're going to Braver, and then back to Tifa into another Uppercut, into another Dive Kick. This is why Tifa is so amazing. In a lot of ways, she's sort of the team leader when she's in the team as a result, because she has to lead the charge on stagger.
Breathe when I breathe.
So now that we know how to use all 3 of these characters, it's time to tie it all together into a like a cohesive routine using the synergy skills. We're going to start with Cloud and Aerith here, who have Spellblade as their synergy skill. As you can see, it's this big wind-up, and boom! This gigantic magic shockwave, and it gives me a ton of ATB, damn near almost a bar. It does a massive amount of damage. As you can see, I almost one-shot that guy. It's a very dangerous skill. It's got a huge wind-up. You can sort of cancel like instantly, just as you begin it here with dodge, and then you can also let go of it early to make it go eh. You also can use Cloud's like defensive synergy skill to get out of it, but I don't have that unlocked yet. But those are pretty much your only options. And then we got, this is Tifa's here, Power Cleave, which is the close range physical version. It's short range and a big explosion, but equally as devastating. And it's wide as opposed to long. By alternating between these 2 abilities, I can create a sort of infinite economy. And I refer to this strategy as the ATB loop. Right there, I think I hit both guys, and Cloud's bar is almost completely filled up. I'm going to instantly use an ability, switch to Aerith, use one of her abilities, into Tempest. I'm going to dodge away so I don't get killed, and then I'm going to use her version of Spellblade, which is called Spellbound Blast. No, I'm going to get knocked out of it. I'm going to use her version here with Tifa, called Spellbound Blast. It's going to give me a ton of ATB. I'm going to do a double cast, and then on Tifa, I'm going to have her do Focus Strike. We're going to switch to Cloud. We're going to use Spellblade with Aerith here. And now we have a ton of ATB again, and I'm going to double cast again, and I'm going to use an Aerith double cast, and we just wiped everybody out with the greatest of ease. You get this insane burst damage that comes with a huge ATB economy. However, of course, once again, it's extremely high risk because it's very easy to die during these wind-ups and get knocked out of them. Lots of enemies have attacks that can interrupt them. But the real reason that the ATB loop is so amazing is because of the synergy system itself. Whenever you spend ATB bars in this game, you get what you call a synergy bar. Come on, Cloud. There we go. Yeah, you get a synergy bar. Most actions give synergy bars. The symbol in the bottom left denotes whether or not you get one, and Cloud's going to get a little blue synergy bar beneath his ATB. I'm going to switch to Aerith, Tempest. Get away from this guy he's just going to blow me away. Okay, let me do that, and then we teleport our friends, and then into Spellbound Blast. We're going to try and get the mobs here, which I did. I did not. But we have a ton of ATB, so we're going to do a Sorcerer's Storm, and then Tifa's going to do Reverse Gale. Into her B&B. Into Dive Kick. Secret Tag Attack to Aerith. And hopefully, as you can see from this, I'm sort of trying to fluidly chain everything together as I rotate around the team. I'm gaining ATB, I'm spending ATB. Aerith's got an ATB bar, so she spends it. Tifa's got an ATB bar, she spends it. And now we have funded a synergy skill, or a synergy ability, which is a giant, high damage, 2-person limit break that comes with all sorts of insane bonuses. In fact, all 4 of the bonuses are right here. The first one is it extends the length of a stagger. The second one gives infinite MP for a couple minutes, but maybe it's 1 minute. The third one is refocus, which changes your 2-segment bar into a 3-segment bar, thereby making everything cheaper. And then the fourth one is this gold symbol that levels up all your limit breaks so that you can get level 2 limit breaks, level 3 limit breaks, etc. This is the strength of the ATB loop, is that it allows extremely fast building of synergy abilities. And as you can see, I'm currently in the middle of a customized triple attack. This is no execution here whatsoever. I'm thinking I'll finish with Braver. That'll do it. Oh, nope, he died anyway. But you can see right there just the incredible strength of this strategy. So yeah, that's Cloud and Tifa and Aerith, also known as the ATB loop. It's insanely high risk, but insanely high damage in ATB as well. You know, anyone who thinks summon abilities are useless in this game needs to try using the ATB loop. They're going to make it rain. Later on, other characters come along and they have their own variations of this. It's a highly customizable idea, the ATB loop. The machine gun, by contrast, is only Barret and Red 13. Basically, I'm describing 2 archetypes, right, rather than builds. You know, Comp 2 with Barret and Red 13 is the magic machine gun, Comp 3 is the ATB loop, and then Comp number 1, which was Red 13 and Aerith, is like a hybrid. Half the machine gun, half the ATB loop. Aerith and Red 13 are both magic-based, so it goes without saying that if there was a 4th comp, it would be Avalanche with Tifa and Barret. This game is all about chaining together double and triple attacks. Hopefully I've illustrated that well enough. You play the team, not the character. It's easy to write off the AI in this game as bad, but in reality what it is defensive. It prioritizes staying neutral so that you can constantly switch over to it, use it for synergy skills, etc. Fluid is the word, okay? It's all about synergy attacks plus switch cancels, plus, you know, abilities, plus limit breaks, plus synergy abilities. Just linking everything together in a sort of merry-go-round of destruction. The key is figuring out sets of actions that work together and then linking them together, customizing them, building upon them, and then finally rotating them around in triple attacks and double attacks. If I have any other major advice to give out, it's probably to not bury yourself under the side content if you're a new player. Chadley pretty much just requires a little bit of bitch work to get most of the material you need. And then after that, just kind of pick away at it as your own leisure. The biggest side quest in the game can't even be finished until the end game, and meanwhile the campaign is amazing. After that, the only thing to say is that Rebirth and Remake both rely on the same set of fundamental rules, and knowing them is the key to succeeding in this game. You have to prioritize resource management. The whole game revolves around ATB. You have to prioritize defense and use block instead of using dodge as a crutch. You have to learn to switch characters and use the whole team together. Use the assessment materia to learn enemies' weaknesses and then very carefully build up their stagger gauge, then trigger stagger and blow them up. You have to stack buffs and debuffs on top of everything because they don't require any kind of magic power, they go on everyone. And you have to identify all the different types of time magic that are in the game, things that give you free ATB. Then, of course, comes the idea of figuring out sets of actions that work well together. I call these routines. And then building around them, upon them, everything you can. And finally, you have to understand that weapons are what tie everything together. If you want someone to be a magic user, a healer, a DPS, whatever, the weapons are going to be the thing that guide you there. I'm not going to cover the other characters that you get because I'm not trying to hold your hand. I want you to sort of experiment and figure things out on your own. If you understand everything I've taught you, then you know exactly what to do. You know everything now, how all the mechanics fit together in a sort of harmony. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go rock back and forth in a corner for the next 8 months while I wait for Revelation to come out. Chadley? No.